In 1 year of starting the business, you have scaled it to all the way to 26 units.
And when it started, it was not even like an idea of turning it into a real business. My idea was to initially just get like 2 units.
How did this happen? How did the growth happen so quickly from the last time I met you?
That sounded like a good idea to me. And I started last year in June with my first apartment here in downtown Dubai. And from that point onwards, I really got the hang of it and kept on adding units. And I yesterday signed my 26th unit through WhatsApp.
We have Redeet on the podcast today. I'm going to interview him to hear about his story and how he scaled his business to 25 units in Dubai. But before we begin and get into your story, I want to hear how it started. So can you give me a brief understanding of who is Redeet?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Syed. It's nice to be here with you again. It's been a while. We always have great conversations. And you as one of the GOATs, or maybe the GOAT actually, with 340 units.
Yes, 340
Chicago.
units now.
Amazing, man. It's always great to catch up with you.
Of course.
And now I'm at 26, actually, 26 units. I signed it yesterday.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. So what I've been doing over the last 10 months is subleasing in Dubai. What I've been doing is renting or leasing apartments and subleasing them for a higher price. So leasing long-term and subleasing short-term and make money on the spread, right? That's what I do.
Right.
And when it started, it was not even like an idea of turning it into a real business. My idea was to initially just get like 2 units, 3, maybe 4, and get some extra money in. And that sounded like a good idea to me. And I started last year in June with my first apartment here in downtown Dubai. And from that point onwards, I really got the hang of it and kept on adding units. And I yesterday signed my 26th unit through WhatsApp. Yeah.
Well, so in 1 year of starting the business, you have scaled it to all the way to 26 units. We haven't even finished a year. It's like 11 months right now.
True.
And I think like it was 2 months ago when I was last here, and I think you were at 10 to 12 units at that time. So within 2 months, you have scaled pretty significantly.
Yeah.
And you call it like that snowball period, where snowball effect, where it's like you're gonna be now growing even exponentially now.
True.
So that's pretty amazing. So walk me through this a little bit. How did this happen? How did the growth happen so quickly from the last time I met you?
Yeah, so what happened is that you build relationships, right? Last time we spoke, we also talked about the importance of relationships in doing business and connections and networking and building trust with the people you work with. And for me, there have been a couple of landlords who have been like entrusting me with their units from the start. I rented a couple of them, at least a couple of them, and they were just like happy with how I dealt with them, right? Whenever there was an issue, we solved it immediately. We paid the rent always on time. And then once they have more units vacant, they just reach out to me. Hey, Redeet, do you want these units? And I got the preferred position before they put them on the market. So that gives me the opportunity to grow fast. And I do it in the subleasing model, but also in the revenue sharing model for the same landlords, for the more premium units where the margin between the short-term and the long-term rent is not as large relatively compared to the investment. I prefer a revenue sharing model, and that's what I do for those units. And there were like multiple handovers at the same time from the developer to the landlords. So I got the opportunity to take those units too. Yeah.
So you said a few amazing things. One thing you said, relationships. So relationships is key. Second thing you did is a reputation. You provided a good service to your landlord, and you did a good job with them. So they built trust with you, and they ended up giving you more units.
Correct.
And lastly, I want to hear, what does revenue share model mean? What does that mean compared to the subleasing model?
So that's a good one. We have subleasing. Like I said, you rent an apartment yearly and you sublease it for shorter periods of time on Airbnb, booking.com for 1 day, 2 days, a week, a month, and you make money on the difference, right? That's the initial model I started with. Later on, I started with the revenue sharing model as well. Revenue sharing is where there is a revenue. You just basically take the apartment, manage it for the owner. There's a revenue, and you typically 80-20 cut. You take 20% of the revenue, and 80% you pay to the landlord. It has some advantages and some disadvantages as well. The biggest advantage is you have like no investment. You don't have to put cash up front. In Dubai, you pay in checks, which is a challenge. You need to pay like They even want sometimes the full year upfront, or if you're lucky, you get like 4 checks. You pay 3 months upfront. You have to furnish the unit. It's going to be expensive, right?
Yeah.
With revenue sharing, there's no investment involved. You just have to do a good job and need to have a good reputation in order to get those units. And that's what I've been doing. I've been adding revenue sharing units as well. Mind you, I only do that for like luxury units. I don't do it for like small one beds or studios, unless it's like second unit for the same owner, then I could make an exception, but that's not the idea. I really want to like put the effort where there is a reward, which is the bigger luxury units.
So what is this typical structure for revenue sharing with the owner of the property?
Typical structure as in like monetary?
Monetary, of course, monetary. And is there a term length of the contract? And what are some of your responsibilities?
Yeah, so the idea is that our added value is that we manage the unit. So we provide the check-ins, the check-outs, we provide the permits, we provide the coordination of the maintenance, the cleaning, everything basically. Right. So the landlord just gives us the unit, then walks away. And we make sure that the revenue generated with this unit is optimized. The cut is 80-20. So 20% is for us, for all the services we deliver, and 80% is for the landlord because he puts in his unit, obviously.
Right. Typically, how much does a landlord make above and beyond what they would have made from a long-term tenant?
So this depends. It really depends on the type of unit.
Okay.
Some units, it's approximately equal to long-term rental, but for some units, it's like 40% more. Wow. Right, so it can be
big difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference. So I always try, when I speak to a landlord that wants to do revenue sharing, I try to give like a conservative approach. I don't want to give like high numbers. In Dubai, it's very common to give like super high numbers, then at the end of the year, the landlord gets disappointed. I try to do it the other way around, give more conservative numbers and exceed them. Right. So, but in short, the answer to your question, on average, I think 20% more than long-term rental is going to be paid out to the landlord when you do it in a short-term rental revenue sharing model. And of course, there's some 20% for us as well, but that's like on top of that, so to say.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got right into like the Airbnb business, but I want to hear a little bit before. How did you even come to this idea? Where's it started from?
So I've been like building businesses since I was 19. Okay. I never had like a job, and I don't regret. I think it's the best decision for me I ever took was to become an entrepreneur. And I started with my first company in 2013 when I was 19 years old. And it was a direct sales business, so door-to-door selling, is knocking on doors and selling like subscriptions. That's what I did. And I built teams, etc. I did it for quite some years. At some point, 14 branches in the Netherlands. After that, I started in a software company and an e-commerce company. The software company I still have, the e-commerce company too, by the way, but I'm like, it's really something on the side. So I'm always on the lookout for like, what are the like opportunities where to make money, obviously, and also do something that you like. And when I was in, during COVID, I traveled a lot, and I was in Aruba during COVID, and I had an apartment right next to another apartment, where in my apartment, I paid a monthly fee to the landlord, and the apartment next door was being rented on Airbnb. And I calculated like what revenue is this unit making compared to my unit. They were like exactly the same units, right? And the other unit was making significantly more. So that to me kind of like clicked, like, wait, there's money to be made. There's added value of providing short-term rental solutions. So long story short, I decided to get into that, to dive deeper into that. My initial idea was to buy a unit and then like put it online and invest in like real estate, potentially in Dubai. I got all these advertisements on Instagram, right? That's what you get if you get into the funnel. Right. But after seeing some videos online and people who like you who are doing the short-term rental, are in the short-term rental industry, but then subleasing, doing rental arbitrage, it made more sense to me. It's way more scalable. You need less money, you need less capital to create more cash flow. So I decided to try it out, and Dubai was just the place to be for me.
That makes sense. So I want to understand a little bit about owning, because people always ask about owning. So you mentioned the keyword scaling in the rental arbitrage or subleasing business. is the ownership model a good model too? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that owning a property is very good. Actually, it's more of a long-term thing, right? So if you own a property, it creates wealth, creates cash flow, so to say, without having any risks, unless you have a high mortgage, of course. And it has some like appreciation
Yep.
of the real estate, so that adds to the value of owning. But again, it needs more cash. It holds more cash. So for me, I just build my portfolio doing rental arbitrage, so subleasing and revenue sharing until a certain point when I will start buying, and that will be more the generational wealth that I want to build, more than the current model of subleasing. This is a cash flow business, right? It's
Right.
cash flow, which is great. But for the long term, on the long run, I think owning, when you can do it at scale, so not like 1 or 2 units, right? Like when you can own at scale, that's, I think, a very good long-term solution.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
So I want to understand the story of how it got started in Dubai. What are some challenges that you saw that happened to you during the time? Walk me through the story of your first Airbnb in Dubai. What was the process?
Man, my first unit. I remember I decided to do this, right? But I had my income already in the Netherlands, so it was kind of an ambition. Like, let's get something extra. Let's try to dive into this new industry and try to get something out of it and see what we can do there. So when I came, I had an ambition, but not an immediate need for cash, if you get what I mean, right? So kind of similar to what you're doing now. You're setting up your business in Dubai when you have a great business in the USA already. So I came to Dubai, but I wanted to do it. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to make sure that it succeeds. But looking for the first unit, that was a tough one, because I did do research about on the topic of like on AirDNA, which is a software where you can basically predict how much revenue you can make with a certain unit. I looked on the sites where you can find units, apartments, like Property Finder, Dubizzle, and I already saw, okay, this is going to be the business model, but I didn't like text agents. I didn't try out how the negotiations will go. So when I arrived here, there were quite some landlords who said no to subleasing. They really didn't want to do like Airbnbs. Even though I had like a good corporate presentation, I got some no's. I expected it, but still, when you get the no 3, 4, 5 times in a row, it's kind of a reality check, right?
But I feel like your sales experience for what you had when you were 19 years old, when you went door to door, and I'm sure you got a lot of no's from that. So it really like sets you up to who you are today. And it was probably, it takes a toll on you, but eventually you know that you'll get that yes.
For sure. You know, it was not like demoralizing at all,
Right.
but it was kind of a reality check. Hey, I got to do like active sales again, right? And it's just me, myself, and I came here by myself, and I had no team yet. And I'm very, very thankful for the team I have now, because I have a great team, and they take care of like all operations from A to Z. That was not the case at all from the start. Anyway, back to the start. So when I was looking for my first unit, I just went to viewings continuously, like check apartments and meet agents mostly. And they, at first, I got this very beautiful unit, and they said like 200,000 dirhams yearly. I'm like, well, that's doable because it fit the business case. But you have to pay in one check. I'm like, that I'm not going to do, right? Because I had a limited budget. One check means you have to come up with 200,000 dirhams, which is a lot of money. You can do multiple units from the same amount, like cash flow wise, if you get more checks. So it took a while. That one I declined. I went to a couple more viewings. I almost got one unit. I actually signed the contract, but then the landlord didn't want to sign because the landlord's wife said, I don't want any Airbnbs in my unit, whatever happens. Even actually, the wife actually called the agent without discussing it with her husband. Oh, wow. Like, hey, listen, I'm not going to put my apartment on Airbnb, whatever happens, and my husband is not going to do it if I don't want it. Right? So that was actually what the agent told me. So I paid the deposit, but the agent came back to my house. It wasn't even my house where I was staying in Dubai back then, to give me back the deposit and say, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So And that was tough. But at some point, I got a unit, right? You just got to keep on like looking for the opportunities that there are, and don't sign the first unit that you like. No, sign a unit that makes sense to your business case. The KPI should be correct. The number should match. And that's what I did, right? So I signed those first units, and then I had to furnish.
Okay.
And I did it by myself.
Okay, I want to continue on with the story of
Sure.
like the furnishing stuff, but I want to get a little more technical first. Like,
Sure.
For somebody new like me starting off a business in Dubai, what are like the steps in the beginning to get one started?
Good question. Because it can get a bit technical if you want to set up your business in Dubai. Say you want like one unit only for yourself as an individual. You already live in Dubai. You want one unit. What you can do is you can rent the unit and you can sublease it without any issues. You just have to get the DTCM license and a permit on the unit. You can do it as an individual. You can also do it if you already have your own apartment that you rent. You can get an additional apartment because you can get 2 ejaris. An ejari is a registration of your tenancy contract with the government, DLD of Dubai, Dubai Land Department, DLD. So you can get actually 3 registered tenancy contracts, meaning ejaris. And one of those you can get a permit for as an individual to sublease on Airbnb, Booking.com, etc. The other 2 you could also sublease, but you need to collaborate with a holiday home company, a licensed company. Without a licensed company or without the help of a licensed company, you can only sublease one apartment legally through the DTCM, which is the authority in Dubai where you have to register all your units and all your guests also, check in and check out. If you have plans to scale more than one apartment, or 3, if you want to collaborate for 2 units with a holiday home company, if you want to scale further, you need a mainland company. And this mainland company needs to have a very specific license, which is the vacation home rental license. If you have this mainland LLC with a vacation home rental license, you can then get a DTCM license, and then you get an unlimited amount of permits, so as many as you want, because you have this specific holiday home company, so to say, the LLC. I chose the second option because I knew I was going to scale at least more than 1 unit, right? I didn't know that I was going to like get to 26 within 10 months, right. But I at least wanted, maybe 3, 4, and take it from there, right? If that's your ambition to scale, or at least get more than 1 without having to collaborate with another existing company, then you need a mainland LLC. I believe you set up your company recently too, right?
I did.
Yeah.
But I still want to take the notes from this. So after this podcast is done, I'm going to take notes on what you just mentioned because it was like so good. But I had guidance from you to have me create mine. So it was much easier for me to do what you just talked about right now.
Yeah.
But how did you know what to do? What resource? Like, how did you figure that out? That's a tough process. You said it so clearly right now, but it is a lot of like big terms that you use. So how did you figure that out?
Yeah. So that's a good one. I just Googled, and then there are like a gazillion companies that provide business setup services, and a lot of them. I just like requested quotations, right? And the quotations ranged from the price I paid, which was 20-something thousand dirhams, I believe maybe 30,000, 32. I'm not exactly sure, like around 30,000, up to like 70,000, right? Wow. Ridiculous prices, because people just smell money, and they smell money and they overcharge you, or they give you a cheaper price, but they give you wrong license. It's ridiculous, right? So they charge you maybe 15,000, but then you only get like an e-trader license, or like something you cannot do anything with regarding to holiday homes. So I just Googled and I looked at reviews and I compared a lot of companies. I had like Zoom meetings with a lot of them, and I chose one company. That's the company I collaborate with right now, also for my community. So everybody who is part of the B&B in Dubai community, the community that I set up recently, is to basically help people out who want to start their own Airbnb business in Dubai. I collaborate with them, and so they provide the community members the service of like reliable business setup, right? That you just know that everything is done well. The process more in depth is there's a process of like an initial approval for the name, and then once your company is set up, you can get your visa on the company, because as an individual you need to have an Emirates ID. Without the Emirates ID, which is basically your ID card in the UAE, you cannot get a phone number, you cannot get a bank account, you cannot like get anything, a checkbook. You need all of that, right? In order to get this Emirates ID, you need to have a sponsor, and the sponsor is either your employer or your husband or wife, like your partner who already has a visa. But in the case of us, as like entrepreneurs coming here and building our own business, we have our company set up and our company sponsors us. So on your Emirates ID, on the back of your Emirates ID, it will show your company name, and you'll most likely have an investor visa. And that's, from that point onwards, you have your ID, you have your company, you get your mainland license, and you get your unit permits. And now, indeed, it sounds like very easy right now, but man, it was a hassle.
I mean, so like, you see how easy like you made it for people who want to start the business now. Even for me, you made it so easy to tell me, all right, just go with this company. These are the things that you need done, and they have done it for me. They'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And you put in so much time to have Zoom meetings, compare quotes, find out exactly what you need. And that's just like, to me, is just like a lot. Like that would have discouraged me completely. So like for you doing that for other people, that's like gold, right? Like for you starting a community, does like right off the bat, you could get going, right?
Yeah.
So that community that he has created, I am part of that community as well. And when I came to Dubai a couple of weeks ago, I started going into the school, and I started searching for things that I need. And then all the things that I need, the description, that I had it there. So I was like, okay, I need to do this next, and I do that next. So it was like so nice. And I highly recommend for people to join that community. Okay, so we got into the technical aspect. We stepped away from the story, but I want to get back into the story. And I want to hear about, okay, furnishing the units. Mm-hmm. Your initial units that you were furnishing.
So the initial units I furnished by myself. So what I did, I literally went to like IKEA, Home Center, Dragon Mart, Penn, Emirates, so like all these different like furniture stores to select my own furniture package, and that's how I basically set up my first units. And I had to like coordinate also with all the separate like providers, and all these providers, they had their own way of working, right? And I had to coordinate with all of them. So I kind of had a good deal. I paid little, but after my initial units, I decided not to do it anymore, right? I collaborate now with a furniture provider, and they basically give me a whole package for everything in the unit, from curtains to the table to the beds, everything, right? You pay a bit more, but I am 100% sure that the units look like very, 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 very good. And honestly, I can focus on like what I like to do, is that's getting like building the company, building SOPs, getting more units, and not like running around furniture stores.
So how much more do you pay a service to furnish your unit for you versus you trying to figure it out yourself? What's like the difference?
That's a good one. I think, it depends, but let's say maybe like 5 to 10,000 dirhams.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah, that's it for all the effort.
Yeah, it's a lot of effort.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah.
I see my team go through the process of setting up units. It's like designing the place, procuring the furniture, bringing all the furniture items into the unit, then removing all the boxes, setting up the furniture. It's just like a lot that goes into it. And for you to logistically manage all that is just not worth that dollar amount that you could pay somebody else to do it.
Right. So let's say it's like 5,000-6,000 dirhams. I would pay more, and it's not only the fact that I don't have to put the time and effort in. It's also like the experience I just get from them. Right. So I made a couple mistakes in my first units, furnishing mistakes. For example, I have in the living room these very beautiful tables, like the coffee table, so to say. They are very beautiful. They have like glass tops, so it makes the room look way more spacious. But since they have glass tops, people just walk by them and they hit their shins. Like,
So I stayed at one of his Airbnbs. Beautiful Airbnb. I've never seen a view like that in Dubai. My favorite view ever. And he said, "Be careful for that table. You'll hit your foot on it." And I hit my leg on it like 2 times.
I'm sorry,
like,
man. Yeah. So that's
gotta
that's
replace
what,
that table.
I have to,
Oh.
right? But then again, I set up in quite some Airbnbs at the start, right?
Yeah.
Quite some of the units at the start. So I have to, anyway. And also it's like this little design touches, right? The paneling on the walls, the wallpaper.
Yeah.
It just makes sense to get a furniture pack and focus on growing your business.
Okay.
I don't do the, especially because I have like the premium units, right? It's a different market as well. If you compare our markets, which was actually an interesting comparison to make, like you're a lot in the USA, you're very big. You're mostly in like studios, 1 beds, right?
Yeah, I'll briefly say for my situation. So because of the regulations in my market, it's very difficult to add units. So the supply is very low over there. And it's also difficult for an individual to get units. So you kind of just take what you get, right? And if I can't get the nice premium A-class units, I'll get what's available. And that it still allows me to make some margin on top of the rent. So that's why I'm successful in mine. But in Dubai, it's different, right?
Different ballgame.
Everyone is able to get units in Dubai, almost
Yeah.
it looks like.
Yeah.
And the supply is significantly increasing like year over years.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where 3 years ago, if you looked at Airbnb, there was like 6,000 Airbnbs in Dubai. Now when I checked the other day, it was like 22,000. So it's
Yeah.
almost like 4x.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
And then, but they put, I believe they put like 29 or 26 and then decrease it again.
Yeah,
Anyway,
AirDNA is questionable sometimes, but but it's still a lot of supply that has entered the market.
it's a lot of supply and there is still a lot of hosts entering the market right now.